Rogue judge just stabbed Trump in the back with what she did to secretly destroy pardoned Sheriff Joe. Here we go again. Once again, an activist rogue judge intent on legislating from the bench has decided to not follow the United States Constitution. Former Maricopa County, Arizona Sheriff Joe Arpaio received a pardon from President Donald Trump last August, but the judge who found him guilty of criminal contempt is now refusing to erase evidence of his conviction. A presidential pardon ensures that Sheriff Arpaio is protected from prosecution, and the United States Justice Department had asked Judge Susan Ritchie Bolton to have her rulings vacated from the court so no trace of the judgment exists. But, like the good little liberal globalist that she is, she has refused. The liberal hack judge wrote in her denial that the power to pardon is an executive prerogative of mercy, but what it doesn't do is modify how judicial records are kept, and that to vacate the ruling in this case would run afoul of this important distinction. Arpaio has vowed to keep fighting, and his legal team has said they will appeal Bolton's ruling on grounds that she misstated the facts in a previous presidential pardon case involving former President Bill, I don't want to say Clinton, of course, which she used as legal precedence for this ruling. Arizona Central reports Sheriff Joe Arpaio in contempt of federal court judge rules 6 months after arguments included in a case against America's toughest sheriff. U.S. District Judge G. Murray Snow broke his silence on Friday, filing a series of withering findings with one big conclusion. Sheriff Joe Arpaio is in civil contempt of federal court. Snow ruled that the Maricopa County lawman and 3 of his top aides violated an order meant to curtail racial profiling in his agency, according to the ruling issued Friday. The ruling held Arpaio in contempt of all 3 potential counts, ending a lengthy proceeding that started a year ago when Snow convened a series of hearings in downtown Phoenix to determine whether Arpaio and his commanders defied Snow's court orders or defied him. Chief Deputy Jerry Sheridan was found in contempt on 2 counts, and retired Chief Brian Sands and Lieutenant Joe Souza each were found in contempt of 1. The ruling set the stage for reforms, costly sanctions, and a potential referral for criminal prosecution, although the judge refrained from making any official decisions on those matters yet. In short, the court finds that the defendants have engaged in multiple acts of misconduct, dishonesty, and bad faith with respect to the plaintiff class and the protection of its rights, Snow wrote in the 162-page ruling. While a milestone, the ruling is largely a formality given the case history. Arpaio and Sheridan admitted to violating the judge's orders before the hearing start date, but repeatedly insisted that it was due to miscommunication and confusion rather than willful defiance. The distinction could mean the difference between civil contempt and criminal contempt, or, quote, fix-it remedies compared with outright punishment. The judge set a May 31st date for a hearing for attorneys to discuss penalties. Shortly thereafter, Snow said he would issue an order on sanctions and whether he would refer the case for a criminal contempt trial. 3 violations came under judge's scrutiny. The contempt proceedings were based on 3 violations that occurred throughout the history of the underlying racial profiling case: that the sheriff's office failed to turn over video evidence that was required before the trial, that officials continued to enforce immigration law after Snow barred the practice, and that Sheridan failed to quietly collect evidence after the trial, as Snow has ordered him to do. Attorneys from the Civil Liberties Union and Covington and Burling represented plaintiffs both in the initial racial profiling case and contempt hearings. Arpaio's state of mind served as the primary topic for debate throughout the contempt proceedings, as the evidence left little doubt that his agency failed each other. The hearings, which started with 4 days of testimony in April of 2015 and resumed with 16 days in the fall, often turned into a much broader discussion focused on the sheriff's enforcement priorities and whether he was more interested in settling political scores than rooting out the racial profiling that Snow had found in the sheriff's office. Arpaio's acknowledgement in April that his attorneys had hired a private detective to investigate Snow's wife was among the most bizarre moments in the lengthy proceedings. It set the tone for exchanges among Snow and Arpaio, his aides and attorneys, that were occasionally pointed and personal. Two other large topics developed out of the proceedings: what plaintiff's attorneys said were worthless internal investigations, and whether the sheriff employed a Seattle-based computer programmer to concoct a conspiracy that would free Arpaio of his legal woes. And it goes on and on and on, and I don't think we even need to know all of it. I mean, Jesus Christ, what did this guy write? Get to the point. Jeez. Look, and it goes on. Wow. I can't believe this. Okay, let's get to the gist of the topic. Snow issued a preliminary injunction in December of 2011 that prohibited sheriff's deputies from engaging in law enforcement practices that unfairly targeted Latinos, and he followed it up in 2013 with an order that included a court-appointed monitor to oversee reforms in the agency. The costs associated with the racial profiling case now exceeds $60 million, including at least $8.2 million in tax money tied to the outside attorneys required to represent all the parties in the ongoing legal proceedings. Oh my, isn't it great how the law changes depending on who the plaintiff is in these cases? When it comes to a liberal globalism, these hack judges bend over backwards to comply with the law. But if it comes to a person who is defending the very sovereignty and security of our nation, they just don't seem to want to let it go. I wonder how many of the criminals former President Barack Hussein Obama pardoned still have a criminal record. Please share if you want judges to be held to account for their actions. Absolutely. In other words, they paid this kind of money for illegals? About racial profiling case? Taxpayer money, sure. This judge is a criminal. They should put her behind bars for this. Is she out of her mind? You know how many people could have used that money in a better way? I mean, it is unheard of. I mean, really outrageous. That's what the writers should have been writing about more so. I mean, really? This is getting like unbelievable with this. Unbelievable. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. And again, thank you so much for watching.